Well, I just assumed it was like a Final Fantasy situation where, like, yeah, the numbers don't really mean squat.
Yeah.
And it kind of doesn't. It's like the first game was like you're on the one side of the war, and then the second game you're on the other side of the war. So the people who you thought were really the bad guys, maybe they're not as bad as you thought they were. Hello, and welcome back to another Dead Pixel, a podcast about video games, entertainment, life, a bunch of other crap that we always just throw in at the end because we just have stuff to talk about. I'm your host today, Joseph, and this is episode 18. With me today is the man who always double down, Nick. How's it going, Nick?
It's going pretty good. I always double down on everything I say, even when it's not entirely accurate or right. I think it's always best to just stick with it until the bitter end. Like Thelma and Louise, just drive the car off the cliff.
Dude,
That's
never admit you're wrong. Just always never admit. Just no matter what. Doesn't matter if you have the knife in hand. You're innocent always.
it's fake news. Deny, deny, deny. Counter accuse.
Put,
Deny, deny, deny.
put enough hashtags in front of it, and you'll be and people will agree with you.
Right, exactly. I'm not crying, you're crying. I'm not the murderer, you're the murderer.
Yeah. Yeah. So, all right. That's
How are you
good.
today?
Good to know.
How are you to this?
Doing all right. So we're recording this in the morning. A little bit before our coffee has set in. So yeah, today is May 21st. So we're recording this on the Saturday. Hopefully, we'll be able to get this up by the end of the day. And if not, you can shout out at Nick. Go ahead and leave comments below how angry you are at him.
That's fine. I can take the pain. I can take it.
Yeah, he's pretty good about getting up from underneath that bus. So,
Yeah.
how about yourself? How are you doing?
Doing all right. I think my Amazon account got hacked. So that sucks. I called them. I called Amazon like over a week ago, and I've been trying to get them to. So I called them, talked to somebody. They transferred me to somebody else, and that person said, we'll get it worked out through your old email in a day or two," and they never did. So I don't know. I guess I got to call them again, but I don't know. I don't know what to do about it because I have a bunch of credit cards and stuff saved on there.
Oh,
But
that's not good.
I think that you can't see the credit card number
It's
from your
usually
own
the last
account.
four digits, and mine still sometimes asks me for, or at least I have it set up to ask me for my security code.
Mine does ask me for my security code. Does not ask me for my security code. I don't know, but whoever broke into it um ordered a hot glue gun set with their own credit card, not with anything, not with mine. So anyway, um,
So now you have their name, right, and their address.
I'm gonna go ahead and dox them because they're a piece of shit. And they live in Arkansas, which I thought
Oh
was
yeah,
kind of funny and weird. But
you have a past in Arkansas. For those who don't know.
I do have a past in Arkansas in the hill country. Um, and their name on the email, which I'm sure is bogus, is Natasha Sanchez. Um, and they live in it's from some small town in Arkansas. So I'm pretty sure it's all bogus and fake, but it's weird. They only bought the hot glue gun set and nothing else. And I don't know. It's the weirdest thing. But
Yeah, that is pretty strange. I mean, considering the fact that you, like, they didn't use your credit card, so there's that bonus, I guess. But I don't know. You sure it's not like a disgruntled ex?
I don't think so. I don't, because they changed my password, so I had to get a new Amazon account. So like, I don't know, but yeah, it's nothing like that, as far as I can tell. But anyway, so but it sucks because like I had Amazon Prime on there, and I think I was paying yearly instead of monthly, which is the way they have it now. I think you have to pay like $15 a month, whereas I was paying for it grandfathered into some kind of yearly deal where I paid less than that. I think, but maybe not. I don't know. I have to. It's all on auto stuff, so I don't remember what all is it's set up to do. But anyway, so that's kind of what's going on in my personal life. That sucks. Uh,
I'm trying to think. So do you like? All right, not I'm not gonna out you, but like, if is your like Amazon something like username and spicy or something like that, and therefore they happen to have like, yeah, this is my normal user handle, and then somehow got it, like they did account recovery or something. That's so fucking weird,
I
man. I
don't.
can't believe
I don't.
someone just went into your stuff and then went, I'm gonna just mail this to myself because this is obviously mine, right?
Yeah,
Like
because
this isn't.
I mailed it to some place in Arkansas, so it has to be some kind of physical address. Yeah, it's weird because like I thought I had two-factor authentication set up, but I never got any kind of thing saying, "Hey, any kind of code or something sent to a phone." Um, all I got was an email saying your password has been changed. And at first I thought it was a bogus email, and then I went and looked, and I was like, what the hell? I don't know. It's the weirdest thing to me. It's just, it's really strange. I have no idea what is going on with it exactly. Um, but anyway, I'll
Well, that
keep.
sucks, but hopefully get that stuff fixed right
I
away.
hope,
So,
I hope so too. But I started a new Amazon account, so I've just been ordering off of that, and I'll probably just migrate over to that. I'll cancel
but,
everything on
but
the.
now when you call them, they won't be like, "Thanks for being an Amazon customer for X amount of years."
I know
Like
it's
that fucking matters.
I know it's baloney. I mean, like not that it matters, yeah, but like I was just kind of blown away because I was like, you guys should be, you guys should fix this, like, or call me or send me. Like I've gotten nothing. I've gotten nothing on the old email. It's just like, this is the old email. This is what it's supposed to be, and I've got nothing. So I kind of want to get it fixed on principle, but also it's like how much time are you gonna devote to it? Just but it's like if this can happen once, it can happen again. And changing all your credit cards and shit is it's a big pain. That's a
Oh
really
yeah.
it's a really annoying thing.
So
Anyway,
no one got access to my Amazon account, but they did get access to my Amazon card. And so therefore they were like, Chase gave me a call and they were like, "Hey, we have some suspicious activity. Are you currently buying bait for fishing over in Michigan right now?" And I'm like, "No, no, I'm not. I am not in that. I'm multiple states away, so yes, not happening."
uh,
So like, okay, we're gonna put this on hold, and we'll give you a new card, and that was about it. Like they did that almost automatic. I've also had a different credit card jacked, and they're like, yeah, so you've been like, we got a lot suspicious large amount of food ordered to from a location that was declined. And we're like, oh yep, no, I'm most definitely not ordering food right now either. I mean, it's 10 at night, and yeah, not happening. So I'm not at Perkins, on the other side of the state. So that's what the order was for. So yeah, that was,
yeah,
and yeah, all that was automated through my card companies, and they just went ahead and replaced those, and I didn't seem to get any repercussions or no lingering bills or nothing like that. So
that's
yeah,
good.
hopefully they don't access the rest of your shit. I don't know. You have
Yeah,
different passwords for all your stuff, right?
yeah, of course. They're definitely not all the same password. I do now. I do have a lot more different passwords now, and I have been using Google suggested passwords, which are like 50,000 characters long, and every single kind of character that's on your keyboard shifted and capitalized and all that stuff, which makes it really annoying to enter into a one key at a time Roku app, but is you just pray
Yeah.
you never have to do it again. But it's, I guess it's the safest. They say it's like just like 16 characters, and they can be like it doesn't really matter. Like they say a computer doesn't care if it's a lowercase j or an ampersand. Um, but humans do. So if you have like if you have it, if you have a password that's like go to the bathroom, all in lowercase, then that's the same as a computer reading like ampersand up HN capital RTL, all those different characters. But that's harder for a human to remember, but it's easier to remember a phrase, like a common phrase. I don't know. That's that's what I know about passwords.
So what I like to do is, for my pro tip for when, at least when you're signing into a new company for any of their bullshit, is either throw in their email, their name of their company as your user handle. So, like Joe Best Buy or something like that, and then I'd have the rest of my stuff. And therefore, if they ever sell my email, they'll have the email header saying Joe Best Buy, we have a deal for you, or something like that. I'm like, oh yeah, Best Buy sold my stuff. Or I'll specifically make it like,
That's
I think it
smart.
was Joe Target, or something like that was mine. And so the person was like, I can't believe your last name is Target. I'm like, no, it's not. I have it on the app, and that's why. And like that way, if Target ever sells my stuff, I know who did it. They're like, oh, that's really smart. I'm like, yeah, a little bit. Uh,
It's a lot of email addresses, though. I mean, that's like 10 different email addresses for
well,
like
I
common
have a
stores.
junk email account, but at least for my for all my user handles, because if they sell my email, my junk email, it doesn't matter because it's literally only for that kind of stuff. And then there's but the user handle. So, whenever they do sell, whoever sells your stuff, they'll at least have your name incorrect. Um, I
Right.
had someone at the McDonald's app being like, it's like, how do you pronounce your name? I'm like, that's just my initials. They're like, oh, okay. Because they didn't realize that I just, instead of putting full first name, last name, I just threw my initials in the app, and that, like, it saved it. And I'm like, yeah, that's it. So they only saw like two characters, and they're like, that's your name? I'm like, no, no, it's not.
That's funny.
So yeah, that, and also if you ever have a GPS, don't save your house under your home. Save
Yeah,
like the local gas station around the corner, or if you want to, save your neighbor or something like that. So if someone ever has to come back and break into your stuff, they break into your neighbors.
that's true. You always want to make sure your neighbors get broken into and not you. Better
uh,
them than me. That's what I would say.
I have a great neighbor, and he and I have this pact where, like, okay, I'm leaving on vacation, so you see any moving vans while I'm gone, you call the cops, or at least give me a courtesy call.
Yeah, it's a
Yeah.
smart idea.
All right. Well, like, other than that, you've been doing all right. So, what you been watching, man?
Well, I've actually been reading a good chunk of manga, and have I am about halfway through Chainsaw Man, which is a manga that's finished. It's got like 90 or something chapters, but I'm about like on chapter 50 something. I think 58, 59 in there, and so that's relevant because I started to read it because I heard it was good, but also the anime is coming out sometime this year, and I saw it was short, so I wanted to jump on it before the anime came out. And the manga is really good. Like, I think it's a Shonen Jump manga. It's sort of, compared to some manga, it's kind of crudely drawn, but it's effective, and it's it's a little bit crude, but it's like still really, I don't know, appropriate, and descriptive, and I don't know, it's just very effective, for what they're trying to do. It's kind of a comedy, um, and it's simple but strange. I don't know. But anyway, it's really good. I'm enjoying it. I should be able to finish it here in the next week or two. And then the trailer for the anime just came out a couple days ago, and I watched that, and I figured they were going to pour a lot of money into it, try to make it really good. I don't know what studio is doing it. I know it is going to broadcast on Crunchyroll whenever it comes out, but the trailer did look pretty good. Looks like they're going all out and doing quite a. I noticed, I recognize a lot of the scenes from the manga, so I was like, okay, they're gonna be covering the manga pretty closely, I imagine. And I was kind of, I don't know, disappointed in the amount of CG that I'm seeing. It's I don't know, some anime like all anime now has a ton of CG in it, whether you recognize it or not. It's there, which is fine. I just don't want to like be watching it and go, oh, that's CG, oh, that's CG, oh, that's CG, like go like over and over again. Um, and this seems to have pretty much all of the drawings seem to be kind of touched by computer graphics in some way, but it looks like they're doing it pretty well. From the trailer that I saw. Only we'll have to actually see what the final product is. But anyway, I'm excited for that. And anyway, it's pretty cool. Have you had a chance to read or know anything about Chainsaw Man?
I only saw some key images from the anime coming out, and I know I've seen pictures of the manga where it's like the plushie with the chainsaw, like pompadour coming through the forehead, whatever, like
Yeah.
horn. And I was like, so that's all I know. And I thought remember you mentioning you were thinking about touching this. Uh, if I can, I generally don't do the whole read before the anime comes out because just like reading a book, if you're lucky, you're like, "Yeah, that's just as good as that was."
Oh
But
yeah.
on average, like, if you watch it, it may be good. You're like, "Oh, I enjoyed the anime." And then you realize and you go back to the source material, like, "Oh, that's actually really different." But I also you enjoy the book as much, usually is the case.
Like
Um,
like from what I can tell from the trailer, I think they're sticking with like I think there's a good chance that they're going to convey the same feeling, the same
so
style and stuff.
historically, it's always the first half is always generally pretty spot on with most
And
anime to
then they
manga.
diverge.
Yeah, but in this case, it's already finished, so therefore you have that leeway of yeah, we can copy the whole source material, and that's great. We might throw in a filler episode here or there, but other than that, that's so that's on the good part. But traditionally, if a manga is being serialized and like yeah, it's still coming out now we got the anime rights, and about halfway through, they're like, and that's it. There's no more source material. Okay, let's make up our own stuff now.
They do their own
Um,
arcs and stuff like that. Yeah,
yeah.
that's true. Yeah,
So no, but I'll watch I'll probably end up watching the anime when it comes out. It looks interesting enough. The artist, I don't recognize anything else they've done. Um,
Toshiyuki
Tatsuki
Tatsuki. That's it.
Fujimoto.
That's it. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like just kind of to talk a little more about the manga. It's very good. It is brief in each of the arcs. Nothing is belabored. Things go off the wall and pretty wild, um, pretty quickly. It's funny. The characters are all different, unbelievable, and it's got a great like I don't know if you like how much you kind of think about this, but it's got a great rule set. So you know how like a good movie or whatever, like one of the principles of like a good story, like The Matrix or even the old Star Wars, is it has a really good rule set where it's like okay, these are the rules. This is the rules for the Force. This is the rules for the Matrix. Whatever, and then it follows those rules and kind of like surprises you. Uh, um, Chainsaw Man does that. It's a very simple set of a couple different rules, and they kind of feed them to you a little bit as they become important, and then they kind of do more stuff with it. It's quite good. But um,
So the rules being that midichlorians exist, and then there's always more Sith than you ever know about, even though there's only supposed to be two.
yes, that's exactly. It's funny that you should
Chainsaw
mention
Man
that
in a
because
subset, yeah.
it's yeah, like that's in Chainsaw Man. But it's wild, dude. Some of the stuff that happens in it, you're just like, this is ridiculous, but it's so funny while it's also so serious and cool. It's really great. But besides that, I've also been watching. I also managed to finish Ranking of Kings.
Yeah, I'm a few episodes from the end of that one, so I was really on top of it, and then just life happened, and I'm like, I got to get back to it. So it's literally opened up on a tab, and it has its own dedicated tab on my phone. I'm like, I got to get back to it when I have a chance.
Like I'll say that where you are in it, you're past the parts part that I have a problem with, I guess. So I think this anime is really good. Overall, it's got a great start, and it kind of goes a little bit, this way and that. Has a bunch of good surprises. It's kind of surprising how good it is, even with a childlike art style. Just kind of this simple art style. It's kind of amazing how much they can make you care about the characters, even with that. But so it goes great for probably like 12 or 13 episodes in there. But then right in like the middle, the back of the middle, somewhere between, 13 and 18 or 19, it kind of starts to spin its wheels. And I think you're past this part. It belabors the point on a struggle that the main characters have. And then after that, around episode like 19 or 20 is when it resolves that and kind of gets back on track and does a couple of more little things. And then
I don't remember because I made it. Like I said, I made it to like 20 or something like that. I'm pretty close to the end. I
there's,
finished one of the major fights where the main character and one of the main bad guy, or he has his final boss battle, like, or he has
yeah,
one of the like, and that one is animated just absolutely stellar. The action scenes, the camera angles, they do these like super low angles. They show a camera underneath a chair, and
dude.
you see the chair legs and the top, and so you're looking at them from a distance, and it's like, why this angle? But it works really well.
So like
And then it's just like,
that's
yeah, the fluidity of the battle, like camera panning as he's running up shit and running on walls, and it's just like, what am I watching here? This is completely different than
dude,
before.
it like there's a theory I have about anime, that there's a knob, and it goes from 1 to 10, and then after the 10 there's a knob and it just says full anime. And that is what that scene is Ranking of Kings just goes full anime for like 2 or 3 minutes, and it's this wild, insane battle, like what you were talking about, just insane camera angles, physics being stretched to kind of unimaginable proportions, and it's awesome. That is like the piece de resistance of the whole show, I think. It's that scene is really, really cool. So you are past kind of the part that I'm talking about. There's a dude that they fight for a long time, and you'll know like who I'm talking about. And it just takes several episodes, and I was just like, what are we doing here, guys? Come on, we get it. Let's move along. And that's kind of that's kind of a blemish on it, that I kind of thought they could have done with probably 3 to 5 episodes less, and been, right around the 20 episode mark, and been a little bit more tight and efficient of a show. But overall, I think it's a really good show. I mean, I don't know where to number this. It's definitely not an 8. It's pretty close to a 7. I think it's better than a 6, but I think probably around a 7 out of 10, somewhere in there. I could see an argument for a little higher or a little lower depending on your stance, but that's probably about where I put it.
Without finishing it at this time, I'd say it's a solid 7, easy.
Okay.
I mean, I don't think I had the problem you did. Depends on which character you're talking about, because there's a couple spots where it's a little slower, I guess. They're kind of stopping an invasion in a dungeon at one point, and that takes a little bit. Um,
That was a
and
weird,
that, but it's kind of like, it was weird because it was kind of a side story or a
yeah.
side portion, but it did have merit for the overall story arc. So it's like one of those things like, what are we doing here, guys? And then you're just like, okay, I can see why we did that, but at the same time, and then there's they slowly introduce a backstory to an immortal enemy, essentially, and I think, is that who you're talking about, where they're spinning their wheels?
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. I mean, the
yeah.
backstory
So
and stuff like that, I don't mind. It's this the constant, like, it's just the repetitive fighting. Where it's like,
it
okay, we know the rules
y-
of this character, and you're just like you do one episode
It's
on
now
that.
my turn to go against them. Now it's your turn to go against them. Now we're gonna go together against them together, and the outcome's always the same. And so that is kind of, I mean, and then they're like, and during this time we're also gonna do a backstory. And I'm like, that's if you pay if the end pays out, then it's worth it. But if it just nothing comes of it, then you're like, well, what the hell the point was? I don't need to know a backstory
It's like
if you're not going to be able to overcome that. So I still, like I said, a few episodes away. But
it's
overall, it was all right.
it's like they're, I mean, like with that one character, it's like no, like you can't beat him. It's like, oh, you can't beat him. It's like, we really can't beat him. Oh, it's like, cool, we got it. I understand. Do that for one episode, and then move on, but not three or four. And they touched on it, and kind of showed you prior, in several episodes prior, which was just enough, and then they just kind of overdid it. But yeah, like
Yeah.
I thought it was I thought it was good overall. I think that what am I saying? I think that My Dress Up Darling is easily better, and I just kind of got back on AKB's sailor uniform again, and I think I see what you were saying about AKB's kind of being the best of the winter season. It
It's most definitely the most, like, wholesome. I mean, it is just overall, like, we're all gonna be good to each other just to be for good sake. It's not, I mean, it has some really pretty moments, but it's also not really too crazy fan servicey or anything like that. It's a simple slice of
I
life. It's
should hope
really
not,
just
because those girls are
yeah,
like
well,
12 years old.
yeah, they're all middle schoolers, but that doesn't stop Japan.
No,
Um
nothing stops Japan.
So, I mean, and if you think about it, we're not the target demographic for that anyways. It's like we're targeting this towards middle school and high school kids, so
Yeah,
that's the original age appropriateness for anime.
yeah, that's
There of course there's
yeah.
outliers, but we're adults walking fucking watching kids shows, you know. So
Yeah. Have you ever seen? I think it's a College Humor skit, or maybe it's a cracked skit. I don't know, where they have Alfred Molina as the children's musical critic, and he like goes to these children's
no.
plays, and he's like a critic, and he's got glasses, and they're like singing like Mary Poppins, or like the kid dressed up as a tree saying "Wah, da, da, da," and then he'll just like that's shit, or that's like, he uses like all these critical like talks. Anyway, that's what we are exactly that. Not to belabor the
Yeah,
point.
let me put on my glasses and, pull out my notepad.
Put on my
Uh
monocle.
yeah. So, all right.
Anyway,
Yeah, that's pretty funny. We, I've been me on the other hand, I've been watching just the current base anime here, and I've talked about some of the ones that I thought beforehand, some of my predictions, which would have been, are currently going pretty strong. But I did come across a new one called the Executioner and Her Way of Life. So I actually didn't know anything about this because I just had been staying away from most of the subbed this season, and a coworker of mine just happened to bring it up and gave me the premise. I'm like, oh, that's kind of neat. And then it just got dubbed. First episode dropped like the other day, so I went ahead and watched it, and it's pretty good, or at least I like it because it's a twist on the isekai format. Essentially, it's about people who get isekai'd, and then this person who works for the church, because the church is always the bad guy. In this case, they're the bad guy, or they're the good guys doing bad things,
it does happen a
and
lot. Yeah.
they just murder, straight up murder anyone who's isekai'd, because isekaiing people is illegal, like in this world, because too many people from another world have been um, gone mad with power, or they couldn't control their power, so they've accidentally caused calamities. So it's like if John Carter from Mars, or like he accidentally went like Super Saiyan and just destroyed half the place. Like, oops, my bad. So they have to take these people out, and that's kind of the concept. I'm like, that's pretty neat. I like the fact that it does something different, and we need to kill the isekai genre.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. I mean, yeah. The it's been beaten to death as it is, um, but that's pretty cool. I've heard this is a pretty good show. It's there's a, I think on our anime, there is a what do you call it? Like a report that somebody does every week, and this one has been consistently coming up. I think it's like ranked 2 or 3, um, along on this overall ranking of like what people are saying is the best anime right now. So I definitely want to try to get to this and watch it. So something else that I've been watching, I'm caught up with. I think I'm on episode 6, so the new episode might have come out by now. But I've been watching Spy Family as well. Have you watched a couple episodes of that, right?
Oh yeah, I'm currently up to date with
The
the
dub.
dub of that.
Okay, cool. Yeah, it's pretty good too. I think it's the first episode didn't quite grab me. I thought it looked good and everything, but something about the story, I don't know. I just wasn't in the mood for it, I guess. But since then, I've watched it some more, and I've really enjoyed where it's gone as well. But yeah, anyway, so it's kind of it, I guess, for my part of the anime rundown. Oh, I did,
Yeah,
I did,
Spy Family's doing pretty good though. Well, yeah, go on.
I did, I have watched a little bit of season 2 of a Rising of the Shield Hero, and man, they're up to their old tricks, man. I sent you that. I sent you that screenshot. You remember?
Yeah, it's just Rough Talia just talking to some other girl like you should just be his slave. I'm
She's
like,
like, she said, "Have you given? Have you thought about trying slavery?" she takes it. She took her to the slave master. So this girl. So Raftalia is like the main hero's number one bae, and this new girl comes in, and she's having all these confidence issues, and so Raftalia takes her to the slave auctioneer, and I'm like, oh no, don't do this, because they show it like coming up, and I'm like, don't do this, and then she like shows her all the slaves, and they're the slave crest stuff. It's like, have you thought about giving slavery a try? I'm just like, how can you write this? Oh
Shield
man,
Hero, give slavery a chance.
give
All
slavery
right.
a chance. And then, man, this is like in the first episode, and and then Raftalia's like, is like, are you gonna make her be a slave, Shield Hero? And Shield Hero's like, no, I'm not gonna make her be a slave. And she's like, why not? And he's like, because I don't want to make anybody be a slave, but if they want to be, okay. And then the chick is having the confidence issues. Is like, I'll be a slave, sure. And and then she becomes a slave, and I was just like, okay.
Spoilers.
I'm sorry. It's really has no bearing on the end of the first season and really the rest of the beginning of the second season at least. But man, I just just like, here you go. This is anime. I'm done. I'm done.
Yeah, that series is kind of shit.
I
But
can't help
I'm
it.
still curious about it.
The turtle that you said you liked did come into it though.
Okay.
Um,
Yeah, I have yet to see any of the season 2. I'm just gonna wait for more episodes to come out so I can just binge it in the background. That's kind of my goal.
that's about right for this anime, I think. Now I think it's about right to just binge it in the background.
Yeah, it'll be one of my Vampire Survivors, background games or something. Probably while I replay it because it's now on Game Pass. So, there you go. You have no excuse why you can't play it. Uh, the
Yeah, I saw
um,
it says a gaming preview on Game Pass. Is it gonna let me play everything that you can play, or is it just certain
I
parts?
don't know. I'm curious because because it's not a full game out yet. It's just it's only beta still.
Yeah,
So they can't say it. Maybe they can't say it's a full release, but
right.
I haven't gotten around to giving it a shot because I'm like, dude, do I really want to try to do all this again? No, not right now.
Yeah,
I
like
have other things to do.
I did see that open up, and I will be trying that. I was like, whenever I saw that last night, I was like, sweet, I don't even have to pay $3 to buy this now.
Yeah, fuck those guys.
Fuck those guys.
Keeping my $3 for
Fuck
this,
those guys.
McChicken.
Yeah, I saved. I can get a whole thing of nuggets for that.
All right. Well, so speaking of playing, so what have you been playing, man?
I started playing Tunic. Um, that game is very good. It is Oh, I have so many things. So that game, Tunic, man, like this is like I'm just gonna go ahead and spoil game of the year. I think that game is better than it has any right to be. And I think that's going to be our category. I think we should have that as a category for game of the year. Better than it has any right to be. I guess that goes along with like best surprise, but maybe we can change it around. But I started playing it. I think I've played it for an embarrassingly long amount of time for how short for how far I've not gotten in it. I spent so the first like real boss, the guy in the rock guy in the garden. Um, I could not beat him for a very long time. I went around and around with him, and I I just couldn't beat him. Like he would do this like triple slam down strike, and I could jump out of the way most of the time, but not like every time. And it would take over half my life away with one hit. And he does it like 3 times in a row, and then he'll just like spam that like over and over again. So I just kept getting murdered by him. I got really close to killing him like one time, and he got me. I was like, dadgummit. I spent like an hour and a half fighting him. But what I figured out was because the game doesn't tell you, at least
Okay, so spoilers. Just probably spoilers.
spoilers, yeah. So the game doesn't tell you this. I don't think it does anyway. Maybe I just missed it because some of the stuff in it is sort of kind of obfuscated. But I was clicking around on the materials that you get that you can't use at the bottom of your menu, but I was standing in front of the offering, the save point offering thing, and I put two and two together that if I have money and I have the materials, then I can upgrade my stats. And when I did that, I was like, oh, you just got to upgrade. That's how you upgrade your stats. I don't even know I had stats to upgrade. So I upgraded the stats for a bunch of different things because I had a bunch of different stuff by then. And then I went back in and I beat him in like 2 more tries. Um, and yeah, anyway.
So it does tell you this in one of the pages you find, or multiple pages actually
Uh,
refer to this. One of them just shows the items, and it shows like this equals this equals this, and it shows like a photo of the save point or slash
uh,
bonfire, and a couple other ones show you like showing your appreciation essentially to said statue.
yeah,
So yeah, that's yeah.
like,
It kind of it doesn't because nothing is ever told to you outright. It's this game is everything is visual, and also the majority of it is in runes, like
yeah, a runic
runic
language.
language. So you have by the end of the game, if you take your time, you can actually try to decipher it, and it makes sense.
I was gonna say, I wonder if that was a thing because they show you even like some menu stuff is in the runic language, and they tell you stuff on the screen in the runic language. So I was like, I
Yeah,
wonder
the
if
very
there's a way.
first thing you do is you go up to a sign, and it's next to a cave, and it's illegible to you. And then you walk into the cave and you find a stick, and you're like, all right, now I got my stick, and I want to beat people with it because that's what you do.
Yeah, man, they really make you earn that. Like when you finally do get the sword, they really make you earn that sucker. And
I
like
didn't find the sword too difficult to get, actually.
I was
I
just,
really, it just took a while to get there,
well,
but
yeah.
it wasn't.
I mean, like I didn't die like on the way to it. I almost died, but I didn't. But like kind of learning to like roll out of the way of the guys that shoot. This is like super early on, and later you just like trash can those guys. But like early on, they do a lot of damage, and gotta like roll out of the way, and then if you roll out of the way and then hit them, but then they can like do a headbutt or something and do damage to you that way. So I don't know, but like the game is really is it's a really cool game. The menu or the instruction booklet that you get pages for as you play the game is really cool. It's part of it is hand drawn and hand colored, and you can zoom in on it super close and like really appreciate the art and stuff like that. And it's almost like the way they've done it is you can see like the printer ink dots, which obviously wouldn't have to be there, but they went ahead and decided to take that extra care to do that. And yeah, it's kind of like uh, it's cryptic. It's just a very cool feeling game, and everything like feels like the people that designed it thought about where you'd be and what you'd be doing and how you would be interacting with the game as they made it. It's really good. I really like it a lot.
Yeah, they do an excellent job. It's like it's a huge like homage to the old, uh, manuals you used to get. And it's very much a Legend of Zelda,
Yeah,
style because it's literally that wide booklet format, and as you're flipping the pages through it, they even have a spot. Well, they have them. They have it chaptered and stuff like that. So yeah. If you know what you're looking for, and they give you the pages just roughly in the right amount of spots. So like they'll make it available to you, and then they'll give you some useful information roughly when you need to know about it.
right.
And then it's gonna blow your mind later because it'll have some stuff, and you're like, "Oh shit, was that a thing? Okay." Kind of like with you with the when you got like I can level up. It's yeah. What well because of me, I was always weird about when you play those old games, you have to hoard everything because you're like, okay, I can use it now, or do I save it for later? Because there
Yeah.
might be another thing, and at one point I'm just like I'm just gonna dump it all now, and I just burned through all my stuff, and all of a sudden I went from like 0 to hero. I'm like, I am unstoppable
The-
because it forced me to get really good at some of the basics
oh,
because
and
I
then
was
you
so
level up and
under
you're like, oh,
leveled.
this is super
Oh
easy
yeah,
now. One other thing that I think is really cool about it is the way that they do a really good job of hiding stuff in plain sight because you can't move the camera and it's an isometric type of angle. They do a really cool job of hiding like passages and my phone just kicked on. They do a good job of hiding passages in the dark, and then in through like the geometric shapes. Like this one place I passed by like 50 times, and I found another way into this passage, and then I was like, "Where does this lead?" And it popped me out right where I'd passed by so many times, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, this game just makes me feel so stupid, but also like full of wonder." Anyway, it's
was it
cool.
was it the underground or was it the beach? Because there's one along the shoreline that I didn't know about, but it's because I was close enough to the enemy, and I skidded like there's a sentry, like a guy with a spear. I run past him, what go shoot down the ladder. I'm like, ha, he can't get me. And one of the other dudes with the sword, he just like disappears. I'm like, okay. And then next thing he knows, he pops between these two rocks. I'm like, wait, there's a spot there. So I murdered him, and I crawl through. I go through I kind of blindly follow my passageway. I'm like, oh, there's another way here. So that was actually kind of neat. They
Something,
have stuff like that. The enemy will sometimes know it more than you do.
yeah, that's interesting. I haven't seen that yet, but I know the spot you're talking about, and the spot I'm talking about is down that ladder and then way around the beach to where it dead ends on one side, and then you can go up into and you'll find that this is how I found the way where it comes out, but you can go into this like tunnel, and you follow that tunnel, which was very obvious to get into. But you follow that tunnel, and that spits you out into a place where is very not obvious. And I was like, that's the spot where I was like, holy crap, wow, this is weird. But yeah, I'm looking forward to playing a little more of it. I don't know how much more I'm going to get to play, because I want to try to do some other stuff, and you've kind of covered it a lot. But I definitely have a lot of respect for it. It's a really good game.
Now, in my opinion, so like you're probably right before there's like for me there was a mid game like lull because I wasn't really accomplishing much, but I was making progress that wasn't necessarily visible. I was figuring where things were, doing a little backtracking,
That's kind of what I
and
feel
so
like I'm doing. Yeah.
it was kind of a rough spot, but then Afterwards, when things started, like I hit another like aha moment where things started clicking again. I'm like, oh shoot, okay, now this amped it up even more, and that's kind of what propelled me through the latter third. And the game does so many things well. I give it a lot of props. Uh, I thoroughly enjoy this from front to back. Like I said, that one little hump in the middle, because I think I had two game sessions where I just felt like I didn't accomplish squat. I was like, oh man, I didn't really make much story progress and or anything like that. But then when you start really getting into those puzzles towards the latter portion, it really becomes a lot more fun. Or at least for me, it was because I love that challenge. Um, the only problem is some of them I'm like, "All right, I figured the gimmick. I'm just gonna look up the answer because 'cause I'm not gonna
Mm.
take the time to go through and, like, you need a pen and paper for half of it.
Oh,
Like, "All
okay.
right, you here's some clues here, here's some clues there," or it's like it draws you a thing. I'm like, "Okay, I know how that thing works. Alright, let me," and what happened is I tried a couple of these on my own, and I was just like, "Okay, I'm writing down what I needed to." And then I'm like, I try to execute it. I'm like, this isn't working for me. This has to be the solution. This is it. Turns out I was maybe I was like I made one error. Like
Mm.
it's I missed a step that was I'm like, oh, that was on me. But after that, I'm like, okay, I know the gimmick. I'm not gonna bother wasting my time trying to figure it out. I'm just gonna, but I look up the answer because I'm like, I know this is how you felt solve it. Um, and if it's simpler one, then I wouldn't bother looking it up. And I didn't just look up a list of them. I just it's kind of when I came to it because I wanted to see if I can solve it by myself. But some of them were really tedious. One of them was just like a rotating image, and you have to decipher the image. And I'm like, okay, I got it. And I'm there drawing it out, and I'm like, God damn it. Okay, no, I didn't get it. This has to be the answer. And then I look up and like, yeah, that's the answer. But you got to do this way. I'm like, yeah, that's what I did. But apparently I screwed up. So,
Yeah, it's
uh,
it can be tedious. I did fall through the world one time. Um,
twice. I did it twice.
okay.
Sometimes when you combat roll, I've rolled off ledges that you
Uh,
probably shouldn't have been able to roll off of, and that's what did it to me.
yeah, yeah, but other than that, it runs pretty well. I don't know how many updates and stuff it's had. It's been out for a little while now, so I'm sure they've kind of ironed out the worst bugs. But yeah, it's a really good game. Um, Besides that, I've also been playing. I've also managed to finish Trek to Yomi. Game that just came out a couple weeks ago. I know you've had a chance to play it too a little bit, right? Um,
Yeah, I've only made it to I've made it to more or less the last major section or second to last, like towards the very end back part. I don't want to give away too like how many chapters or anything there are because for anyone who but it's a short game. I th- it's for me I'm looking on track to beat it probably within 3 to 4 hours.
yeah,
So
so maybe like what's this like? Can you describe this game to people who maybe haven't seen it? Because I think that's probably the most interesting aspect of it.
all right. So it's a black and white side-scrolling uh, action game, essentially, for the better word. It's a little more methodical in the sword play, but it's very much paying like homage to all these old um, samurai movies and directors. So like one of the biggest ones is of course Akira Kurosawa. They they really go for this. Intense grainy texture on your screen so it looks like film grain. It actually has the pop and
Right,
some of the tear marks of old film, or like when you engage into a battle you can't just run away, so when you try to back up it'll have these white blurry lines like the edge of the film,
right, yeah,
uh, stuff like that. And essentially, you're this, yeah, you're a samurai who's in charge of this, land, and it's you end up trying to squash some bandits, and the bandits, they're led by a very powerful person or a very smart person, and the lump sum of the story without giving away too much. It's like I said, it's only a handful of hours long. Um, I don't find it particular. I'm playing it on normal settings.
yeah.
There's 3 settings in the beginning, and I can't remember the other 2 settings, but the easy setting is Kabuki, and it's like for those who just want the story. And I thought that was a wonderful title for the easy mode,
Yeah.
because Kabuki just being a theater show, a play. I'm like, okay, that's pretty awesome. I played it on the medium setting, And once you beat the game, it looks like you can unlock an even something higher than hard difficulty. So,
Oh, okay. I mean, like, yeah, it is definitely made after those old Kurosawa films. I think kind of specifically um, because like your master, I think, is named Sanjuro, and I think that's I'm pretty sure that's one of the characters in a Kurosawa film, kind of famously. I could be wrong, but yeah, it's the aesthetic that really kind of separates this game. They were pretty brave and ballsy, I think, to go fully black and white, but they do a lot of really cool stuff with light and the way that the game looks is really beautiful. It's really, hang on a second, I got a cough.
all right. So while he's coughing, this also one of the things they pay homage to is the fact that like the Seven Samurai,
Right.
you'll see these banners hanging around of the I'm pretty sure the enemies, and it's very much uh, lifted from that. It's slightly different in the design, but it's I think Seven Samurai is six circles on a flag, making essentially the dice side of six, and then they have a triangle on the bottom. I think this one's I think it's like four dots and then a lower fifth. So it's kind of like an upside down pentagon. And it's but it's like and then they have like a character underneath it, which I couldn't remember off the top of my head what it was, but I'm like, oh, that's totally just them making a Seven Samurai reference, but not stealing that image.
Yeah, they definitely make a lot of references to it. But like I was saying, like it's a really pretty game in kind of what they've been able to do with mimicking the old black and white style. Because there's a lot more to it than just like making a game black and white. You really have to do a lot with like focal length, making things focus in and out, making shadows appear correctly and properly, framing things, and a good portion of the game, probably like 20% of the game, is sort of just like this is the image, but I'd say like 80% of the game is, hey, we thought about the angle, we thought about how this looks as you go through it, and we also made it playable. Sometimes those angles do get in the way of playability, um, but they're short and kind of few and far between. Um, like I found that this game had like the biggest problem I had with this game was frame rate drops and hitching that would get me killed sometimes pretty often. Like a lot of times when I'd run into an area for the first time, I don't know. It didn't happen all that often, but probably like 10 or so times when I ran into an area, it would hitch and I'd get stabbed by the dudes and die and have to redo it because the game kind of screwed up. But yeah, I mean, the game gives a lot of different moves and stuff and some different enemy types that do different things. So you've got to use different moves on different types of enemies. Like some guys are very like heavy attackers, but they have like no armor. Some guys have armor, but they don't really attack that much. And you have to like figure out, okay, this is a move the game just gave me, so it's probably best to use this move on this type of enemy. And they throw all three of them at you at some point or more, and you have to go, okay, use this move on this guy, and then turn around, use this move on this guy. So it's pretty cool. It's kind of a fighting game. It borrows a little bit from like a fighting game in that way. But yeah,
All right, so I'll start with my, I guess, negatives on it. The As far as the actual gameplay goes, I thought it was really simple. It was so it the one thing I hate about it the most is there's collectibles. I
yeah,
really dislike the fact that there's collectibles in this game. It really takes you out of it. Because now instead of just playing and enjoying the story, now I'm literally hunting, trying to go down what looks like a non alley, and then I'm like, oh yeah, there it is. Okay, I found the thing, and it makes you go through way more crap than you have to. I don't mind that they have like health upgrades and stuff so much, but it's like they have these collectibles,
Mm.
so many collectibles per level, and then when you miss one, it just bugs you, and there's no chapter select.
Yeah,
And
that should be changed. Yeah.
so that's I find that just super irritating. I don't want to be taken out of my experience by just having to do a collectathon. And as far as the gameplay itself goes, uh, as you're finding things, you'll also find like scrolls or whatever that teach you new moves, which is fine. It's just that I feel like you can get away with most of your stuff with a handful of basic moves. Like, so I didn't have those frame rate issues. I'm also running a 3080. You're running a 970, so it's a huge difference. I'm currently running at what was that 3440 by 1440. So I'm using it when I switched the aspect ratio, it took away my the cinematic black bars on the top and bottom. So I'm like, huh, this is a completely different feel of the game now because it doesn't have that cinematic look. And I'm also running it at 120 frames, so it doesn't there is some weird hitching every now and then, but for the most part, I wasn't really getting a lot of dips that I noticed. I didn't have my, a frame rate counter up or anything like that, but for the most part, these battles, I just, pretty much you can just parry and then mash a couple light attacks. The basic dude will die after 2 slashes, and that's it. The heavy guys, you parry, and then you do a light, heavy combo, stun him, and then you finish him. And the finishers are pretty good. There's a handful of them that, like, it took a while before I started seeing repeats of the finishers.
Finishers. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, they're really, really cool.
yeah, and, the finishers also give you part of your health back and stamina,
Mm.
so that really helps out, and that's why I found the game to be not too terribly difficult. It wasn't until later that you get some more projectiles or guys with poles, but you have projectiles yourself, so then you just spam a couple of those, and you kinda cheese your way through those, I feel. So the gameplay itself was kind of I don't know, it's one of the things that it does the black and white thing really well compared to, Ghost of Tsushima, which actually had a filter that was like Kurosawa mode,
Yeah.
and that was just black and white, but it was missing a lot of
The
flair
yeah.
that, Kurosawa film would actually have, and so that was disappointing to call it a Kurosawa mode and not, this does if you call this Kurosawa mode, I'm like, "Yeah, totally. I can see the difference." Though unfortunately, with the budget, Ghost of Tsushima is far better playing game, and it does that whole stance dancing better. So, like with different kinds of enemies, you switch different kinds of sword stances, and that's how you defeat them. This one, other than like, oh, that dude has a pole arm or that dude's a projectile, uh, and then there's the heavy guys, and those are the three that I had to worry about. And usually with the projectile or anyone with a staff or a pole, I just ended up using a bow or like a shuriken equivalent. So yeah, that's kind of I just kind of hit those from afar and then just murder them.
The problem that I had was when it would be like 4 or 5 guys that were different enemy types, kind of around where you are now. I think you're in like one of the later zones, um, but there's a couple places toward the end where they do surround you with like 4 or 5 guys, and you don't have time to use any of your meaningful projectiles. So you've got to like really parry exactly right and or block exactly right, and you have to use the exact like that you have to use the exact correct uh move on the target that you're facing on like the first try, or else you're just gonna get like murdered. I mean, I ran into a couple places where I did have to, um, I did have to, go back and I'd have to fight them probably like 10 times or something. Sometimes I was like, I'm just not really focusing on it, but when they start throwing like multiple different kinds of enemies at you, it can get pretty dicey. Um, so
So for me, the one spot there's literally one spot that I had that problem, and that was I'll say it was like chapter 4. Um, and it's essentially you cross a river, you meet a group of people that you kind of know, and there's like 7 of them, and they just dogpile you from both sides. Now I'm playing on a keyboard because for some reason this thing is not registering. All the other Game Pass games will register my PlayStation 4 controller. This thing has not, and that's why I haven't gotten around the. I would have beaten this game had I had the opportunity like last week, but I've only been able to try a couple of times. Every time I tried, it's like it's not registering my controller. I've deleted it, reinstalled it. Make sure other games on Game Pass work with my controller, but for some fucking reason, this thing doesn't work, and it is just irritating as anything.
That's so
So I'm
odd.
playing it on mouse and keyboard.
Huh, I
Um,
wonder.
so the hardest part with this thing is you have to you have to move your whole hand to hit certain things. The finisher is an F, so if you're doing the WASD format, that's easy enough to reach. But then if you want, if you ended up wanting to switch projectiles, that's 1, 2, and 3. Like the upper numbers. So you have to then lift up from there. Shift is to block. You have the dash is to space bar, and so like you're constantly moving. A Q is to use your projectile. Uh, it's really annoying for this kind of game. I believe it's meant to be played on a controller,
Oh yeah, I would
and
say so. Yeah.
so that was my hardest part. Luckily I have the 180 move mapped to my one of my thumb buttons on my mouse,
Yeah.
and so I can easily turn around that way. But what happens is if I go up to switch a projectile, then I come back down. Maybe I might jump the gun and I might hit like either alt or like caps lock or something instead of shift, and then I'm like, oh shoot, and that's it. Then the next thing I know, I'm getting stunned because I'm getting hit multiple times. So that particular spot, I think I died like 7 times. That and I just gotten like the cannon a little or the musket kind of. So slight spoiler, but
Yeah. They
it's not
want
a
you to
very.
use they definitely want you to use that whenever you go into that zone. Um,
So I used it right away, and I'm trying to do it, and it was that was a frustrating thing, but I think that was more of the key binding from in my situation. I bet I can probably optimize the keys on my thing, but to make it more efficient. But you get a move that lets you, so long as you time the parry right, it lets you automatically face your enemy who you're parrying. So you can
yeah.
parry even in your blind spot, and that because of that, it kind of makes everything moot, except for when you get a guy who's doing a projectile from far away, and they keep on interrupting you. You do have stamina. I haven't found stamina exhaustion to be too big of a thing, mostly because uh, you get so much upgrades as the game goes on. So
Okay.
unless if you're really bad at blocking, if you're holding block for too long and you're taking a beating, and then you run out of stamina pretty quick. But if you just time the parries, and they do a little glint, so it might be a little harder for you because if you're having bad frame rate issues, and I know that the consoles have been having inconsistency with their frame pacing. Digital
Yeah.
Foundry did a thing that said like their best way they found with playing the game was to play it on PS5, but play the PS4 version in back compat mode, and I think it gave them a locked 30, maybe a locked 60, but it actually locked the frame rate, while everything else was unlocked frame rate, so it was inconsistent at best.
Maybe that's why, because like I found the parrying to be some, mostly doable, but sometimes I would be parrying when I was like, I'm pretty sure I'm hitting it at the right time, and it wouldn't go. So maybe that's what was happening with a lot of enemies on screen. The parrying would go to shit, and I would get killed a lot until I'd finally luck my way through it.
Yeah,
But
because
yeah,
I don't know if it's locked, the frame rate's locked to begin with, but if you were able to lock it, like had you locked it to like 30 frames or something like that,
it'd be more
that might have
consistent.
been
Yeah,
a lot more doable for you. You might have. I'm not like I said. I'm not sure how the older GPU holds up. You might have had to dumb it down to like 720 or something like that instead of 1080.
but I mean,
Uh,
like this game, like I mean, as good as it looks aesthetically, it shouldn't be that hard to run. Like, I mean, you're talking about basically like 2.5D with a couple characters on screen that are not even that big or moving that fast. Like,
you got some particle effects, you get some shimmering, some reflections, and then you get like a lot of bokeh depth of field because they want to make it that film
The
style.
bokeh, yeah.
But in theory, that should help with what the target of what you're looking at, because if it's not making anything extra super crisp on the outside, um, and you're just only focusing on making things look good in the middle, it should help with performance. Plus, you're not doing the full aspect ratio of graphics because they do black bar the cinematic, top and bottom,
Yeah.
and so therefore you're not producing even at a 1080. You're not getting the full 1080 because you're missing out those chunks. So it
That's
should
true.
be easier to run in theory. But
That's
once
true.
again, I don't know enough about that stuff.
Yeah, I don't know. It should be, but maybe it's just something to do with my system or whatever. But I mean, I got the controller working, so I guess that's one point for me. And you have the frame rate, so that's a point for you. But anyway, I thought it was a pretty good game. I enjoyed it. It's exactly what I want uh, from Game Pass is these kind of games because
It's really, yeah, I'm enjoying it as well. It's the right length too. It's
yeah,
not overly long. I'm going to have this thing beat probably the next game session I do. Like I said, I would have beaten it by now if it wasn't for the fact that I was trying really hard to get the controller set up. But I just gave up and I'm like, I'm just going to play this game. And no, this is exactly what you want. You're right. Was it Devolver Digital helped bring this out?
yeah. They're the
And
publisher. I don't know who the developer is though, but
yeah, and so I'm like I was excited about this when they first showed it. I'm more or less not disappointed. Like I said, the only real disappointing part for me is just the collectibles because it takes you out of it a little bit.
yeah, it's
So
I think it's about what I expected slash wanted it to be. And if they make another, whoever makes this game, I'll try to look it up at some point. And if they make, and whatever they make next, I'll definitely jump into, because I think it was pretty good.
all right, well, that's pretty much for what you've been playing, right?
Yeah, that's pretty much all. I played a couple other things, but not ready to talk about any of them yet.
All right, so I got to touch another Game Pass game, the Eiyuden Chronicles Rising. So I played this in probably the most unoptimal way possible, and that is, I used Game Pass. I streamed it to my phone over my company Wi-Fi during my lunch breaks. Uh,
You sure you want to admit that?
oh, dude, it's lunch break, whatever. It's
I
just
guess,
Wi-Fi.
I
I
guess that's
don't
true.
care.
I guess that's true.
So that's, it was one of those things that I'm like, I got some time to kill, so I'm just gonna go ahead and do this, and it actually worked surprisingly well. Well, I think it's because this game has a lot of all right, it's a side-scrolling, action RPG is the best way to put this, and by the
And
makers of Suikoden, the Suikoden franchise. It has their distinct art style, which is pretty lovely. I've always liked the Suikoden series. I have all of them up until the later PS2 ones, I think. So I have 1 through 4. Maybe even, yeah, I think I have 5 as well. Um, and there's a couple spin-offs as well, but that series has always been near and dear to me. I love the soundtrack to Suikoden and Suikoden 2. I Yeah, that soundtrack is just amazing. And what this is the same developers as Suikoden. They're making Eiyuden Chronicles is going to be 2 games coming out. The first one is Rising, and then slated for next year is Eiyuden Chronicles 100 Heroes. So this also goes back to Suikoden because there was like in Suikoden you were able to get was it 105 or 108 stars of destiny, which means you could actually unlock that many characters.
well,
Um,
yeah.
yeah, that was one of the, back then, certain things that was like, you put it on the box, right? You're like, yeah, you can have this many people, um, or like this many endings, and that was always kind of the concept of those things. So in this game, you're playing as a small group. Your main character is crap, her name's CJ,
Yeah.
and she's an adventurer, or she's not. She's not, what does she call herself? I forget. Like she gives herself a stupid name, where it's just like,
She's like,
uh,
because I did play like 30 minutes of this game, and she says, "I'm not a thief. I'm a scavenger." And the difference is that thieves take things from living people, and I take things from dead people, or something like that.
Yeah, but she gives herself, like, the moniker, like, benevolent or something like that, or
I don't know if
it's
I could.
because she gives herself a good like, it's I'm a good scout, I'm a good one of those, because yeah, that's exactly it, but no, her character is likable enough. She's her weapons are just straight up, pickaxes, but they're like,
Like for
Lara
climbing.
Croft
Yeah,
climbing mountains, it's like, okay, that's a unique weapon for a fantasy setting,
yeah.
uh,
It's like
and
it's definitely unique, and it's kind of quaint. It's like, okay, it's more of a tool, but yeah, you could use it sort of as a weapon. So it kind of makes her less like, or likes her. It makes her more harmless, sort of. I guess I don't know.
yeah, it's well, so she's on a right, like her village or clan does a rite of passage, so she's trying to make her way as an adult, and so this is her trying to prove herself, in the world, and essentially she answers like a newspaper ad saying like, "Hey, new dungeon found here," it's like, "Come here to make your riches," and she's like, "Okay, I'm gonna go there and make some money," and so she's essentially a prospector,
Yeah.
and she comes into this broke ass town, and it's your job to rebuild it by more or less doing these runs and doing a bunch of fetch quests. It was like, you're gonna go ahead and you need these supplies. All right, let me go get them for you. Go out there, come back. Ta-da! Here's your supplies. Now you built like a smith, blacksmith, or now you built like there's just instantly building these things like so. It's all predetermined. You don't get the luxury of like I'm gonna set up this town the way I want or some sort of like micromanaging system like that would be kind of nice, but no, it's very bare bones in that sense. I've only played a few hours of it, but it's enjoyable. I mean, it's a fun way to kill some time. I can't really say it's doing anything like god tier amazing, but it's doing everything just right. I think it's from what I heard, it's not too long of a game. It's only supposed to be like 12 to 15 hours.
Okay.
And it does unlock a harder difficulty as well. There's a couple posts. There's also some content like post credits or whatever. So the big thing too is if you're interested in this game, is when you beat it, your progress or some character information will carry over to the game that's coming out next year, which is that Eiyuden Chronicles 100 Heroes. So these party members, if it's anything like the old Scoon games, like you'd be able to then pick them up and they'll be at whatever level they were, or at least have extra stat boosts because you've already done some work with them. So
That's pretty
uh,
cool.
yeah, Suikoden did that with Suikoden 1 to 2. You're able to save your PS1 memory card data. And then from 2 to 3, that's when it went from the PS1 to PS2. And then you were able to actually do it from 3 to 4, I believe, and you needed a special PS2 to PS 3 like adapter. And it's
Right.
like as a special memory card adapter, which for the as far as I can remember, was only solely for this game. There might have been a few other games, but I don't remember any of them coming out to the US that actually required you to be like, "I'm gonna use my PS2 memory card for some reason on my PS3." So I have that set adapter in
Wow.
box. I never beat 2, Suikoden 2. As much as I love that game, I made it really far, but that game is one of those old school RPGs that take forever, and you have to follow a guide if you want to unlock all the characters. And back then, I was very much a completionist. Like I have to do everything, and if I screw up, I'm starting it again. Uh,
Oh, that's a
yeah,
trap. I rented Suikoden 3. I remember renting that and it not grabbing me. I remember like renting it. I think I was kind of burned out on JRPGs back then because I'd played a ton of them. I think Suikoden 3 was on the PlayStation 2 though. It was just like the
yep.
newest one. And I think it was sort of it wasn't I don't remember what it looked like exactly, but I feel like it was not really top down. Um it was like a kind of on the level of the character.
On the level, a little bit pulled back.
Yeah.
It was very much a PS2 game where you end up running around, like grinding. That one did the neat thing of having three different characters set up in different locations, and they all kind of converge into one central storyline.
Okay.
So
Yeah,
Uh,
something about that just
yeah.
didn't like didn't grab me, and I didn't. I was like, okay, whatever. But years later, I did play, or I didn't play. I did start to hear about kind of the wonders of Suikoden and how great it was. Um, but like this game, it's okay. I've only played a few minutes of it, so I can't really speak to it too much. But it does seem like a good quiet time if you want something that's not too complicated, but kind of JR kind of gonna satisfy that JRPG itch a little bit. I think it'd be good on the Switch, something like that. It'd be a good kind of like I'm on the bus, just kind of play a little bit and then go on. But I don't know how much more I'm gonna play. It seems all right though.
Looks like Suikoden goes for quite a few different prices, but one of them, let's see, we're looking at like hundred to hundreds of dollars for the first Suikoden and Suikoden 2.
I believe that.
So I
Yeah,
got them both. So I got some cash on me.
that's
Uh,
awesome, dude. Like, yeah, I wish I still had a lot of that old stuff. I mean, I think I might have my Sega somewhere. I don't know, but I'm like, I mean, you just
You can still buy them for the PS3.
yeah,
They were on the digital store, or yeah, I think it was on the PS3. And then, so that was one of the things that was like, oh, when they close down that store, you're not going to have access to that game again. Um, which was one of those joking. I'm not going to sell the game because I bought Suikoden 2 for like $10 at a used store that they didn't know what they had, and
yeah.
the guy, it was literally a vinyl, like it was a music store, and they just happened to have a small game section. And so I'm like, oh, sweet. Like I went ahead and bought it mostly for anime cover. And I bought the second game before buying the first game.
Uh,
And well, I just assumed it was like a Final Fantasy situation where like, yeah, the numbers don't really mean squat.
yeah.
And it kind of doesn't. It's like the first game was like you're on the one side of the war, and then the second game you're on the other side of the war. So the people who you thought were really the bad guys, maybe they're not as bad as you thought they were, you know.
Oh,
Um, yeah,
imagine
it's
that.
the story is pretty epic actually. It's a really amazing. Uh, those games are just phenomenal, especially for the time. I think that was one of the things Eiyuden Chronicles I wish they did is I wish they had voice acting in it. Uh, like
Yeah.
I wish they had. It's just it felt really off not having voice acting nowadays and age. Just like you know,
Yeah, I mean that's expensive, but it really makes the characters come alive. I mean, it's expensive, but I mean there's so many. I mean, you can get voice actors to read lines on Fiverr for a reasonable amount of like a reasonable amount of money. If you pay them like a real salary, I don't know. Game developers are often broke as it is, so maybe it's a lot to ask. But you're right; it would definitely take that game up a whole notch if it did have voice acting.
yeah. But yeah, I think it's a it's a good game if you take a look at the art style or if you're into anything with Suicune or anything like that. These it has some of that same lineage and it's just a fun little game. It's not too terribly difficult and it's the right bite size chunk. You can play it literally over a weekend if you have a lot of free time. So yeah, I would recommend just giving it a shot. And worst case, you can bounce out early. It's not like it's going to too much investment.
That's true.
So yeah, outside of that, that's really it for what I've been playing. I mean, I've of course dipped back into my normal Vampire Survivors.
You're
Got all those,
so
got that
weak.
because the new patch came out and some new achievements, and I got all those. There was only a handful, and got some new characters. I was I discovered that's there apparently. I don't know if it's still available, but there's like a save hack you can do to unlock a character,
Yeah.
and it's a deformed version of Death. And it's literally missing number, so it's a Pokemon reference to the OG Pokemon.
Oh,
And it's like it's Death, but like pixelated and like fucked up.
yeah.
So I just quick read about it. I'm like, okay, maybe I'll do that later, but I haven't bothered. Now I haven't gotten all the unlockable characters at this point. I did I did try to get to kill Death to unlock him, and you do this, but there's a format in the library that a lot of people try to do. You get, and I didn't have the most optimum build,
Yeah.
but I made myself to like 37 minutes, and 7 deaths had appeared, and I wasn't able to kill a single one. Uh, so I did not get to unlock Death at the end.
Uh,
So.
that's too
And I'm
hard
like,
for
yeah,
you.
okay,
Yeah.
I'm done. I'm done for tonight. And then that was it. And I played a little bit more here and there, but that was
Oh,
uh,
Vampire Survivor is a game that keeps on giving.
yep. Check it out on Game Pass. Hopefully, it's the current build. And yeah, so how about the news, man? Or do you need to take a break?
I'm good. We can keep powering on through. So the newsy news. First of all, just a quick announcement. Epic is having a mega sale. If you don't already know that, I'm sure you probably already do, but they're having a mega sale. I've looked at some of the deals. Some of them look pretty good for some older games. Some pretty deep cuts. And did you see that they just gave away Borderlands 3?
Yeah, that just came out this Thursday.
Yeah, I mean,
Um,
the game's. I guess it's like almost. I guess like it's a 3-year-old game now, but I don't know. To me, it feels like it just came out. But I was surprised to see a game kind of that. I don't know, of that size just being given away. But
They
yeah,
gave away like 3 games last week, and 2 of them were solid, and I cannot remember what they were. One of them I actually already owned because they had already given it away earlier. Uh, but yeah, it's like they've been pretty good at that, and I
what?
mean, hopefully, usually they'll announce what game they're giving away next week.
Right.
But currently, because of the sale, they have it like obscured, so it's supposed to be a big surprise. So sometimes they give away some really good stuff. And
Yeah.
Borderlands, despite if you may like the franchise or not, I mean, that's still a pretty decent sized game
Oh yeah.
to just give away for free.
I mean, like in this day and age, between Epic and Game Pass, like, if you have a machine and you have Epic and Game Pass, you don't really need anything else. I mean, you're not gonna be able to play the best stuff that as soon as it comes out, but you could have a huge library. I mean, you already have a huge library with just those two. So kids these days, you got it so lucky. I'm just letting you know. Um, but moving on to the actual news, a couple interesting things. First of all, probably the biggest, most interesting thing, I guess, is EA is looking to sell or merge. I pulled this story from Kotaku. I think that's where it originated. Basically, um, they've been shopping themselves to several different places. Let me see if I can pull it up. And of course, I'm going to reload it. They shop themselves to several different places. The biggest one that got the closest to actually happening, though, was with NBC Universal. Um, they apparently were deep in talks with them to be bought or merged or something like that. I can't remember exactly what the article said. Um, but yeah, so I thought that was kind of interesting in this day and age with all of these mega mergers going on with a lot of the big game companies. Um, I would kind of be thinking that EA would be looking to become bigger, which they have been. They bought up a bunch of studios, but to become bigger in order to compete more directly with Sony and Microsoft. But it seems like they think that they need to go the other way and be bought instead. Um,
Well, maybe the CEO has done something shady and they want to bounce before they get caught.
could be that's a good move. The old Bobby Kotick, as they say. um, I honestly I would like them to be bought because they it's kind of a famous meme that they buy studios and then run them into the ground. Rest in peace, BioWare. Um, along with with several others, but I think if they were bought and had some oversight, then that may not happen as much. It would be maybe a good way to save studios that come under that umbrella, that they wouldn't just be totally gutted and totally changed. But I don't know. I think it's interesting to see, and hopefully we'll see if they actually end up getting bought or anything like that. But I thought it was kind of weird. Um, Next up, Kotaku also did a little thing on. They're calling it not E3, and they show. Trying to find the article again. Um, they show all of the dates for the pressers that different game developers are going to have. Uh, First one June 9th, Summer Games Fest. Next one after that, Guerrilla Collective, is on June 11th. And then Wholesome Direct is also June 11th. Future Game Show, also June 11th. Xbox and Bethesda is the next day on June 12th. PC Game Show is later that same day on June 12th. And then Overwatch Showcase. So I guess they're having their own separate thing on June 16th. And then THQ Nordic is having a showcase also. Oh no, this is later on August 12th, so a few months later. And then Gamescom is having a thing on August 25th. So I thought it was nice for them to put together a list of everything that's going on. It looks like they are kind of trying to put together some sort of E3 type digital event, but with no Sony and no Nintendo. It's kind of just Xbox. It's going to be the big the big shower there.
Yeah, and it's one of those things that, uh, people just said, that's like the final nail in the coffin, right? E3 is officially dead because they've already taken some time off. It's been kind of middling, and so
Yeah, it's
not really too surprising.
it's just a it's just an outdated format. I really I really love the days of E3 because it is sort of, in a weird way, it's like the Super Bowl for games, or I don't know, like the Olympics of games, video games
It was
rather.
when average games got media press, like the average, like news channels would actually talk about video games in a legit manner, not like, in hysterics, like, Grand Theft Auto makes kids murder people or something. It was legitimately like, hey, people are getting together. The video games are a real thing, and this is to be taken seriously. But that was also back, like I said, that was a long ass time ago.
Yeah,
The only argument I can see now is people are like, well, the smaller, mid tier to smaller developers, this is their time to shine and to show them. Like, yeah, but the cost per outcome, it's kind of hard to say whether or not it's worth their expense to go there to do all the setup. And there is a little bit of, hey, all these developers and all these people are here, we can rub elbows, maybe we can talk to some publishers, maybe someone would want to help us out and fund our game. There's that, everyone being in one spot, but also other people have been doing it better. Even before the pandemic, Gamescom has been getting bigger and bigger, and they're better suited for this kind of thing and more for the public, because I think you could tell the moment they opened up E3 to the public, like, okay, this is no longer the E3 you remember, and this is more
yeah.
or less the way to, I mean, if you want to have a good showing, you're better off going to a PAX. It
Yeah.
just, that's meant more. They know how to cater to the public. E3 never really got a good grasp on it, and yeah, so it's one of those things that
Well, I mean,
you
like,
should just bury it and remember what it was, and then make something new if you really wanted to.
yeah, I mean, the time for it has moved on, and it was always supposed to be an industry show. I mean, it's supposed to be like people who are businessmen and trying to make a business and an industry like run. Um, and not like, I know that I've heard that developers hated E3 because they'd have to make something special for it, take time out to make a vertical slice of a game, run exactly right, so that it could be shown, and that takes out valuable like time and effort, and then going there in person. Um, it's a big expense, and I totally get it. It'd be really annoying to have to do that. Uh, I do, like probably the last big E3, like the biggest E3 that I remember was that the one Sony one where they unveiled God of War and they did a teaser for Death Stranding. This is like 5-6 years ago, something like that, and but that was huge. That was like, okay, that was like I mean, there were so many things that came out of that E3, especially, and even like Xbox had a good showing that year. It just was dwarfed by how much Sony was doing. And I missed those days because it was like, man, that's so cool. I think they even, was that the Final Fantasy VII year? No, that was later that they showed that, I think.
For me, it was the last time I thought it was good was the price points and announcements for the last gen consoles, the PS4 and the Xbox, you know, One series.
Yeah.
So yeah, so the Xbox, 'cause when the Xbox One came out, they did their talking, shot themselves in the foot, and then Sony came out and just slapped them across the face, and and they
Yeah.
completely made fun. Like it was pretty brilliant. It was one of those like, oh man, and you probably won't have that kind of showing again, and you haven't since. But I mean, you can always fingers crossed.
Yeah,
Uh,
I mean something will come up and replace it probably. That'll be, different, maybe not as good, maybe just as good, maybe better. But it's one of those things where, I mean, I never like if you'd asked me when I was a kid, I would have said E3 is never going away. It's always going to be here. But times change and everything goes digital. And really the gaming world is way more diverse now than it was when we were kids. I mean, when we were kids, it was like, Nintendo and Sony and then Xbox, kind of there in the early 2000s. Um, and that was it. Mobile games weren't really a thing. There weren't all these kind of branches. I guess there's always PC and stuff, but that was always sort of like, over there. Um, and like now it's phone games, it's games on Netflix, and then all the traditional media, and then PC is definitely its own kind of ecosphere.
we have ways to reach people now than we never did back then.
Yeah.
So therefore, it's a time and place thing. I mean, back then during E3's biggest hypes and such, you still had PlayStation Magazine giving and Xbox Magazine giving away demo discs with their
Yeah.
with each issue.
Wow.
So because you couldn't, there wasn't a way to conveniently download, these, games and stuff like that because your internet would take so long. Now you can do you can do your Nintendo Directs and, like PlayStation Present stuff. You can, whenever you want on your own schedule. You don't have to work around other people's, so you don't have to crunch for that vertical slice video. And you can be like, here's what the game looks like. But honestly, yeah, it's no for the most part, you don't really need to have this anymore. And you're gonna have the gamers, or choice awards or whatever, or you're gonna have, plus you have packs and you have games come. You have all this other stuff that E3 is not necessary like it used to be.
Yeah.
If you want to bring it back, but also the ESRB and everything, they've come under so much scrutiny and they
Yeah,
need
man,
to
when
be
they
revamped from the ground up. So
when they doxed all
um,
those people's information, that was horrible.
what are you talking about? That happened like 3 times, and their website was that way for a long time.
Yeah.
Like, they literally were told about it, "Oh, yeah, okay," and then they didn't change it for, like, half a year or something like that.
Yeah,
Uh,
that's just
so
that's egregious. It's like how do you get? I mean, they were dragged through the mud, and then it still was up. It's like, what is going on? Do you like get your s- get get your secretary to fix it? Like, I don't know what you have to do to fix it, but it's not that hard to take something off of a website. I mean, it really isn't.
uh,
But
well, it's talk about spilling and, like, leaking information. You have a news article coming up next.
yeah, Norman Reedus spills the beans again. I mean, the guy doesn't give a shit. He doesn't. I guess he doesn't understand video games or money. So Norman Reedus has basically, for the third time, all but confirmed that there is a Death Stranding 2 coming out. He did back in March. He said we've been working on stuff. He just kind of let that slip, and then this time they were doing some kind of article, and he was kind of praising it. And he was like, "We've pretty much got all the mocapping done for the second one." So I can't remember if that's exactly what he said, but something along those lines. Um,
The defense the last time around was the definitive edition or whatever hadn't been released yet. So then we're like, oh, they could have meant that. But now that sucker's been out for such a long time, they're like, "Oh, okay, you can't cover this up." But at the same time, is it really leaking, or is it like, hey, go ahead and drop this for us because it'll get more buzz if it's coming from you than if it would be at a normal press release.
that is true. Like if you leak something, it's probably spreads faster and wider than if you say, "Hey, here's the official news," because everybody wants to get a little teaser, get a little bit of that extra sauce. But I just thought it was funny because I don't know, I don't think Norman Reedus gives a shit. So he's just like, whatever. And it's like, who cares? Yeah, we know they're gonna make another one, or we know Kojima's gonna make something else, and Sony's probably gonna. I mean, I don't know how well did Death Stranding do? I feel like it did pretty good.
Yeah, I actually I don't know the numbers off the top, but it's like from everything I got, it seemed to do favorable. I mean, they weren't. It wasn't a Square Enix being like, we're disappointed in these,
hundred
these
million
really solid
dollars.
numbers because our expectations were just too damn high.
Well, that's
Um,
I mean that's the thing is like there's it's about profit. So if you put $100 million into a game and then you only sell it for $101 million worth of profit, then it's like, okay, we only made $1 million. That's really not, they want to make two or three times or even more. I don't know what their margins are, but they have a set number of their margins. And sometimes really big, expensive games that sell amazingly well just don't sell amazingly well enough based on their expectations. I didn't know if Death Stranding fit into that or where it fit into that, but it looked, I feel like it was fairly cheap to make and they made it quickly, um, compared to what I guess we all thought, at least what I thought it was going to happen. Um, but anyway, so with that in mind, it's like, yeah, they're going to make another one, and I'm sure they're going to use some of the same people because why
thought
wouldn't
they
they?
were also like Death Stranding was partially. I forget how it worked. It was something having to do with they didn't they not outsource their engine from like Guerrilla Games or something like that? Uh, I remember that it wasn't like totally theirs from the ground up, not like the RE engine, for the new Resident Evil remakes. So
I don't
that
know.
also helped, with that because back then they used to have to make their own stuff for all the Metal Gears,
Uh,
so but since they already have an engine and they have quite a few assets in place, theoretically, a sequel wouldn't be that much more difficult. The big question is story content because Kojima always has to be, really bombastic in his type of story because he has to have some sort of, hidden message, whether it be about social media or, and he really just slapped everyone in the face with like, dude's name is Bridges, building connections across the world, across America, and it's just like, all right, we
yeah,
get it.
that's what turned me off of Death Stranding 1. I didn't play it. I was like, I don't want to play this right away. I might play it later. But everything I heard about the story was like, no, I don't. This is it's ham fisted. It was like everything that was explained to me. I was just like, this is sounds bad. I mean, it just
It
sounds.
was it was the story. I didn't get too far into it. I played like I don't know 10 hours, and the mechanics of the game was kind of fun. I just didn't really care about the combat at all, but just traversing. I'm like, yeah, if you're just playing this as like I don't know trucking simulator, then
Yeah,
it's kind of okay,
yeah,
And then they've added so much goofy stuff. Like you can now like uh cannon your some of your gear or your load. You literally build a cannon to just jettison some of that stuff, and you have more vehicles, and they've done some quirky things, and it was a fun little game. It looked really pretty, but honestly, I I spent about all the time I needed to with the first game,
yeah.
and I'm not actually interested at all in the second. So on that
Well,
note, next piece of news.
so fuck that. So Embracer Group, who owns THQ Nordic, says that they are quite happy with what they got from Square Enix, and that they are going to be making some more Tomb Raider and what is the other one?
Deus Ex.
Deus Ex. Thank you for rescuing me there. Um, so they're doing sequels, remakes, and remasters. I've got all kinds of stuff planned. And anyway, I just thought it was kind of interesting because like back when THQ Nordic was created, um, I remember listening to podcasts and stuff and people being like, it's they're going to be like a like a B-rated studio. They're going to kind of make like B games, and it'll be nice to have, some budget type games that are pretty good, but also, cheaper and shorter. They do seem to be making, a lot of that. But the kind of numbers that they were throwing around back then, I just remember thinking like that something about this doesn't seem like a small studio type thing or like a medium sized studio type thing. And everything that we've heard about since then, they've slowly but surely gathered up some pretty big properties over the past couple years. And I think this is just another one of those uh, symbols of kind of how big they've become. I just kind of wonder how big they will end up being in the next, 5 or 10 years.
Yeah, they've secretly been, or not so secretly, but they've just seemingly have been acquiring studios here and there and just getting larger and larger as time has gone on. So, their portfolio is pretty good now, and honestly, I'm curious to see what they do. Deus Ex, I originally really liked the series. I liked it when they came out with uh, what was it, Deus Ex? Not Mankind Divided. That was the newest one, but the one previous one before that, that I completely platinumed that game, and that game was I had to beat it twice because one of them was the Foxiest of Hounds achievement, which was you have to play the entire game without getting discovered.
Oh, wow.
Um, yeah, so it was making fun of or as a homage to Metal Gear because
Mm.
I think it was like big boss rating is when you don't kill anyone and you're never discovered, and you kind of had to do that with this game. So that's how much I played when they first came out with the Deus Ex remake. I played that one that much, and then the last one I just didn't really get into it too much, which was kind of a disappointment. So and of course, Tomb Raider, well received. A lot of people still use Tomb Raider as benchmarks to this day.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it'll be neat to see what they do with that franchise. But honestly, yeah, it's one of those things that's, of course, they're going to be making anyone who has those titles. They're going to be making a new game of those. It doesn't matter if it's Embracer or not.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, exactly. And those games definitely do need more titles. I think like we were talking about earlier, how SquareSoft um, kind of was disappointed in Tomb Raider sales and stuff like that. I think that whatever Embracer Group does will probably not be quite as snazzy. Um, it won't be as polished as what SquareSoft did, but it might maybe bring some new ideas and
I mean, they're just going to be publishing it, so it all depends on who gets to actually get their hands on it and
I
actually, you
I
know.
know, but like Squaresoft is a big meaty publisher, so they might be willing to throw more money at it than what an Embracer Group might do. But anyway, it'll be interesting to see what they decide to do with it. But besides that, Konami might make more Silent Hill. Um,
Yeah.
and this makes me nervous, but I don't know. Silent Hill is one of those games that I never played, but it's on like the tippy top of my list of old games to play. Silent Hill and Silent Hill 2 especially, because you hear about how amazingly great those games were. The problem I think now um, is playing them legally in an acceptable way. And I think that the last I heard is that you can't. Like, to play it legally, if you play it on a whatever repack or whatever thing they've got, it kills the vibe. The old PlayStation games had fog because the draw distance sucked, and they needed to make sure that frame rate and everything held up. So they made all this fog to hide stuff, hide enemies and stuff like that, and it made it really cool. But in the newly released PC versions and stuff, they're like, "Oh, we don't need all that fog because we got plenty of horsepower to make all this work," and it just totally kills the atmosphere and aesthetic of the game. So I'm not really sure how I should play them, but that's been a project of mine to figure out. But anyway, for Konami,
You mean you don't have the original, PS1, PS2 copies of these games?
I do not. I never played them. I think I just said
Yeah, I
that.
know, but you should just have. Doesn't matter. You could still own them and just never play them.
Yeah, but why don't you own them? Yeah, yeah. I don't know. I have an old PlayStation and PS2 that I don't even know if they work. Because I got them secondhand. But anyway, Konami might make more. I have zero faith in Konami making anything good at this point. It's a totally like wait and see approach with that. But it'd be interesting to see if they do actually put anything out.
Yeah, well, that and it's just Silent Hill has been pushed to the side for so long that you just really don't hold your breath. That's all there is to it. I mean, I was a huge Silent Hill fan. I own the first four games, and I think I actually own that HD collection you were talking about that came out.
That's a
And
yeah.
I actually don't think I actually played it. I just bought it because it's there and it's available. I bought the HD collection and I never bothered playing it at all. I do generally like I love the first two games hands down. Uh, it was I think I discovered a comedian around the same time, like early 2000s or whatever, who had this little bit where talking about amusement parks, and I can't remember who this comedian is, but he's like, yeah, amusement parks, what's so amusing about ass clenching terror? And we had a buddy of mine, we laughed so hard at that, and so then we dubbed Silent Hill essentially ass clenching terror is what we dubbed it at the time because it was so weird. It was just like,
ACT,
you know,
ass clenching terror.
it's just like, well, you literally hear these weird noises in the background, and you can't see squat from the fog, and you can see barely come in and barely leave, and you're like, all right, and you have this like, I forget, it's like a pipe or something, like, I'm gonna fucking murder you the moment you come around the corner, and you're like, ah,
Dude,
or these little weird, knee high monsters, like, just stabbing you, and we're like, what is going on? What is this thing? It's so blocky, I can't make out. Is this supposed to be like a baby? you know, I don't know what's murdering me. It's
I
just, it
think
was
there
such
are
a
like
weird game.
I think there are like babies, like demon babies in it. I think I've seen scenes of that.
They're the one they take you out in the alley in the very first bit
Mm,
of that game.
that must be it.
So,
Yeah.
and
Uh,
it was, yeah, like I said, that game was so good, and the sequel, no, two and three was also really like,
I heard three was
they were.
solid in its own way.
Yeah, I mean, and also you had all these. It was very much a Japanese game, like, oh, Japan, because you had like a bunch of endings. You never it would made no sense on how you got the endings back in the day. So you're like, and then you'd hear or you'd read in a magazine like, there's an ending where it's a dog. What? It's
Yeah,
just
that's
like,
like the joke ending. Yeah, it was the
yeah,
dog the whole
and it's
time. Yeah,
like, how do you get that ending? It's like you didn't know any of that stuff. So
yeah. There's a lot of mythos around some of those old games. That's really cool to read about and watch YouTube videos on. Um, The last piece of news here is just that Square Enix has filed trademarks, three more trademarks for Final Fantasy VII. Um, let's see if I can pull it up here. Uh, Final Fantasy VII Remake Intergrade, I think, which we already knew was going to happen. Final Bar Line and Labyrinth Striker. So we kind of knew that more Final Fantasy stuff was going to be coming, but this is just another little bit of news for exactly where it's going to go in the future. But yeah,
Well, secretly, what it is for you is it's your nonchalant segue to talking about your figurine collection and how
yes.
you
All
probably already pre-ordered that new Tifa
I'm cutting
statue.
this out. I'm cutting all this out. Oh yeah,
And there's more than one version of this statue, so you probably have all three of them.
we're gonna
That way
call
you
it
can have them.
the luxury version. That's the one
Yeah,
we're
it's
gonna get.
you have for those who don't know,
No one's listening
look
by
at your
now
own
anyway.
risk. But it's
Uh,
Tifa doing the Jacko pose.
and
And
that's all we
if you
need to
don't know
say
what
about it.
Jacko pose is, look at your own risk.
Yeah,
Uh,
that is all you got to know. If you know, you know, and if you don't know, you should probably not be at work while you figure it out.
oh yeah, most definitely not safe for work, not safe for parents. And because Nick there is like total, money bags. He has, $783.99 to blow on the statue with two interchangeable bodies.
Dude, that is so
Yeah.
much money to throw at a statue. I mean, that is insane to put almost $800 on a statue. And there's more. There's ones that are even more. There's
Oh yeah.
plenty that are even.
From this company that's doing it, not necessarily going to. I won't bother throwing out their name, but they do actually do some like the statues are pretty decent quality. It looks like,
Well, yeah,
but also
they better be.
it also looks like they do some knockoffs for some other high quality statues. Like they're selling this other one for like I think it was like 500, and one of my buddies is like, oh no, that's totally a $1,500 statue. So they're just doing a like their own knockoff version of it, and
Really,
I'm like, that's a $1,500 statue, and he showed it to me. I'm like, holy crap! All right, yeah, you're right.
dude,
Um,
can't imagine.
so
There's
you know,
yeah,
they
there's
they do a
people.
really good one of my dress. They have a couple of my dress up darlings. Some of them are R18. Um, but one of them was just her in a swimsuit, but behind her has a light up sign of her name. And it's just
Mm,
this, I'm like, that's kind of neat just because it's an actual light up, thing. I'm like, that's kind of
it's a
cool, but I don't.
lamp. It's a lamp, honey. It's it's like that's like
Would you
the
rather have me have a thigh, like
yeah.
fucking a Christmas story leg, you know?
That's what I was thinking. It's a Christmas story lamp. Oh man, that's so funny. It's a modern day version of that.
It's a prize. I won it. It's my
Yeah.
trophy.
Yeah. I
Trophy
wonder if they
wife.
have to get permission from Square Enix to to do that. I mean,
It's a really big gray area when it comes to anything anime related. Like you'll go to an anime convention and there'll be people just selling bootleg stuff everywhere. T-shirts, their own crochet dolls. They'll make their own plushies.
I know, I know, and there's and like Etsy stuff you can kind of get away with and around, but I don't know. I guess it. I just wonder. I guess it's still the same principle. It's still just a company on the internet that probably operates
Yeah.
out of
But I can be
China
at a
or whatever.
convention selling merch for Funimation who's just right over there.
But like it's a different branch. They're not going to send they didn't bring their
He's
police to like
yeah.
lock you up and get you, give you all kinds of press. Like all that stuff has got to be done with lawyers behind closed doors and stuff with letters of intent and crap like that. So I guess it's still the same thing as like Etsy and private sellers. It's just a little bit more money involved. But anyway, so I think that's all that there is for the news.
Yeah.
Anyway,
So, all right. We appreciate you guys making it to the end here. All right. We're gonna be changing some stuff up a little bit next week.
oh yeah,
Nick is gonna be away, so we'll be doing a little earlier recording. We're gonna see if we can do a remote, edition if there's any new news that pops up in between, or if there's anything we really have to try to record. But we'll essentially have it canned and a little bit in advance and add anything if we can or if we have to. Uh,
right.
so yeah. Outside of that, Nick, what's the moral of the episode?
Um, always know your memes. You have to know your memes, or else nothing matters.
All right. True words to live by. Well, thanks guys for watching episode 18 of Another Dead Pixel. And, we'll wait to do this again. And thank you again. Y'all take care.
Thanks. Bye. We're talking about one of Joe's favorite movies, Hot Fuzz.
I've watched this movie probably more than any other movie. It's one of those things that it's perfect to have in the background because it's not like explicit. It's not, other than some silly like death scenes, like it really is okay to have in the background. Like you play Die Hard or something like that, it gets super loud, gets super
There is
like
there is that one scene where the spike from the building or whatever, the tower, falls on the person and it just explodes the person.
he doesn't die. It just goes through it goes through Bond. What's his name? Peter Moore?
Yeah.
Yeah, and he goes, "Oh, it really hurts."
I feel like somebody got just impaled like top down.
Yeah,
and
he does.
destroyed.
He in the very end he falls over. There's a model of the new Sanford building or Sanford City line, and he gets the piece of the steeple from the church goes through his lower jaw. He doesn't die. So at first you're like, oh, and then later on they come back to him and he's like, Can someone help me?
I had to rewatch it again. I feel like it's a different scene that I'm talking about, but but I don't know. It feels kind of close to.
Oh, there's one. Okay, there's one. The actual steeple of the church completely lands on the dude's head.
Yeah, and
That's
it just
right.
like
It breaks
obliterates,
off.
just like blood everywhere. Is like a complete bludgeoning of a human being. I did press record, and when I go ahead and do the sound check right